So question number 1 is a suppository plays a pivotal role in the dissemination of information throughout the novel. How does the director contend with this element of the story when bringing the book to film? So essentially, suppository and dissemination is spreading around information through letters. The director of the 2005 film spent limited time with the letters on screen, but he still incorporated them. I believe he incorporated just about every single letter that was in the actual book to the movie. Sometimes they aren't featured often, but their information of the content example, when Collins wrote saying he was coming, that was still incorporated and the information was still given, even though we didn't read the entire letter, or no narrator read the entire letter. And an example of there being narration behind a letter was when Darcy wrote to Elizabeth when she was staying at the parsonage with the Collins parsonage, to explain himself. But first, in the novel, the letter explains Darcy's role and why he separated Jane and Bingley, and it explains more about Wickham and reveals the truth about him. In the film, we get the exact same content. The only difference is we get to hear it from Darcy. Darcy is speaking the letter, the content, and explaining it. With that going on, it keeps the film moving more smoothly and gives the viewer more of an emotional connection to what the novel is. With that being said, I believe the film is far more effective to essentially get the idea of letters spread information around, because with the novel you kind of have to come up with your own interpretation of what's actually going on. To me, the novel isn't the easiest thing to understand. You really have to take your time to dissect it. But with the film, you get a visual representation of essentially who the characters are, how they're meant to be. And that's another thing with the book. You may interpret a character incorrectly, but with the film, you can interpret characters correctly and then get more of the emotion behind of what's going on. Okay, question 2. The final scene of the film does not appear in the novel. Likewise, the resolution offered in the final 2 chapters of the novel is absent in the film. What is the effect of the director's decision to alter the end of the story, and does this shift alter the audience perception of key relationships in the story? So the novel ending focused a little more on Darcy and Elizabeth families and what the effect of Darcy and Elizabeth coming together did. It more even focused more so on Elizabeth and her sisters and the effects of what Darcy and Elizabeth getting together, how it affected her siblings, especially in social dynamics with upper class, lower class during the early 1800s. The film's ending ended with Darcy and Elizabeth sitting together and talking at Pemberley, which was Darcy's estate, which I guess is now both of their estate, discussing their future as a married couple, and I believe it highlights even more about them being older and what if they get mad at each other, just romancy stuff, I guess. The effect, I believe the effect changes the way the audience views the story, with the novel ending focusing more on how it affected their families. You get to see what the social norms, not see, but I guess have more of an understanding of what the social norms were, and what the upper class, lower class, what it did combining families, surrounding Darcy and Elizabeth's marriage during the early 1800s. The film's ending with more of a romancy and lighthearted vibe, I guess took away from the whole central focus of what are societal norms, what are females' roles, How are they breaking through like getting away from those through the feminism, which like the whole novel is very much surrounded early feminism, and it takes away from that and goes to more of a happily ever after, like a fairy tale. So I do believe that the shift of making the film's ending more romantic alters the audience perception of key relationships. It takes away from societal themes to gender roles and class rank and goes more to life is perfect once you find your one, nothing's gonna be wrong, especially once again when it's set in the early 1800s. It took kind of, and then it made it more modern for people, but it took away from what I believe was the key focus to make it more lovey-dovey, essentially. Okay, now for question 3. The film shows Mr. Bingley rehearsing his proposal and ultimately asking for a private audience with Jane before he proposes, which is, asking for a private audience is exactly what Collins did too. So I guess in the film he kind of kept the proposals with private audiences, because even Darcy proposed private audience with just Elizabeth both times. Anyways, this scene is not a part of the original novel. What might the director have gained by adding this scene to the story? And I think there are like a couple things I added to him, but the overall arching idea is that it added more depth to Bingley's character in the film compared to the novel, and it made it more where the audience can have more of an emotional connection to Bingley. The first reason, like underneath adding depth, is it humanizes Bingley's character a little bit more. He is a little bit more on the upper class side and society based off of the book and context clues, and made it where I guess us as the audience can relate more to him. It made him come off as more vulnerable, and I guess Bingley rehearsing it made us be like, oh, they're just like every other human and he must really care for Jane. It humanized him, made him more relatable, and he gets more portrayed as open-hearted. You can see that he's very nervous, and then he's also very straightforward, but he's also like has a lot of extra words to it, and so it makes it more easy to relate with. And then I also believe it enhanced, like, this isn't really all the way connected to it, but kind of still is. It enhanced the romantic tone of the film by rehearsing the proposal for, I guess, more modern, so like this time period, the 2000s, the audience can see it and they can relate to it more, and I guess the audience cares more for happily ever afters, so it just makes Bingley more relatable, that where the audience can relate to him, so, which is pretty cool when you think about it. Okay, and for the last question, question 4, consider how both Austen and the film directors work to characterize the Bennet sisters, so that's the overall idea for this question. So, did the film version alter your perception of any character? If so, how? If not, to what did you attribute to the director's ability to so accurately portray each sister on screen? My opinion is that the director didn't really alter how I view the characters. He kept, and I say that especially with the Bennet sisters, is because he kept key qualities with the Bennet sisters and he brought them from the book to the movie. And so I'll just go through all of them and give a couple reasons why. So with Elizabeth, she's portrayed in both the novel and the film as intelligent, independent. She has a very playful sense of humor, as you can see when she's conversing with Darcy, especially when she's staying at Bingley's estate. I can't remember the name. She's kind of joking back and forth. And then she's also very quick to judge. As you can see, she judges Mr. Darcy pretty quickly, and then even more so when Wickham tells his story, but she's open to change. And as soon as Darcy explains himself and she gets to know him, she starts viewing him in a different light. She even goes on to marry him. Jane, she's gentle, kind-hearted, very reserved, and then she thinks the best of people. You can say she's reserved because it's both in the book and the film. She's being encouraged to show her feelings for Bingley more, and then she's always coming to Mr. Darcy's defense. So that's why I say she's a little more naive and thinks the best of people. Mary is very serious. She just is black and white, I believe. She's musically inclined, but she's not that good, and it's with the piano. And with her being more serious, I believe that's where she becomes a little bit more socially awkward, black and white person, but doesn't really want to be out there. Kitty, easily influenced, less mature, but we can't really see much more of that because she's not mentioned a lot in either the film or the movie. And then Lydia, she's very reckless, and then she's also very impulsive, and you can see that with them. She almost got eloped, and then Mr. Darcy had to come to the rescue.